and out of nowhere, we ended up hearing a shot. And this shot wasn't from an actual weapon, but from a paintball gun that a teacher was holding. At this moment, we realized this Squid Games in high school was a lot more than we expected. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but crazy story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was actually my grade 12 year. And in grade 12, I'm not gonna lie, there was one thing that every student in my school was talking about, and that was the Squid Games. Now, if you guys don't know what Squid Games is, basically it's like this really popularized show that was like, I guess dedicated in, Japan or China. I don't really know what part of Asia it's part of, but it's a really big show which is about people playing games and essentially dying. Honestly, I don't really know why this is even a thing or why this is even a show. Like, I really hope that kids don't actually end up playing Squid Games in school, but let's just say I did. And it all starts off, like I said, in my grade 12 year. In grade 12, I remember I ended up going to school one day and I was just chilling doing my own thing. It was Friday and a lot of students were excited to basically get out of school and enjoy the weekend. But one thing that was getting really talked about throughout my entire school for that basically entire week leading up to Friday was Squid Games. Apparently, it was like the biggest thing talked about. So many people were wearing tracksuits because of it. Many people were, singing the whole the whole thing basically that everyone loves so much. And I remember I thought the Squid Games was dumb. I never actually ended up watching the show at this time, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't care for it. To be honest, the only shows I actually enjoy watching is like Batman or, something more reasonable. But I remember there was one moment where one day when we entered inside our classrooms, we ended up hearing something on the announcements. And the announcement said, "Would you guys all please head over to the assembly gym? Thank you." And all of us students ended up lining up in front of our classrooms and heading down to the gymnasium. When we got there, I remember a lot of students started sitting down in the bleachers, totally confused on why we were here. But that's when our principal walked in front of the school wearing this really weird black trench coat and wearing a mask. And a lot of students started to freak out. I have no idea why. I didn't know what it represented, but he popped up in front of the classroom saying, "All right, students, you guys are probably wondering why I gathered everyone here today and why I'm dressed like this. Well, students, we're going to be hosting the Squid Games in high school." At that moment, everyone in the school started cheering, like insanely cheering. And I remember I even started to cheer as well, hoping that maybe this would lead me to not having to do homework or schoolwork at all. And that's when our principal ended up saying, "Next week, we'll be hosting the Squid Games. You guys will be living at school for the next following week, playing games and basically trying to win the grand prize." A lot of students started whispering, wondering what the grand prize was. And was it money? No. It wasn't even money, because the grand prize was apparently, if you guys win the Squid Games in our school, you guys will not have to do finals and get an automatic pass. At that moment, every student in the entire school started cheering. It was the biggest deal ever. Think about it, not having to do finals. Like, I think every student would want that. So I remember when he said that, a lot of us were pretty excited. Even I was excited. But then that's when he mentioned the one thing that kind of freaked me out. And that was, "So when you guys go back to class, remember to pick up your consent forms to be playing in the Squid Games. Hope to see you guys next week." At that moment, everyone went back to class, and when we got back, we ended up getting a stack of paper handed out throughout the classroom of our consent forms. And consent forms are a normal thing, by the way. Like, a lot of schools hand out consent forms for, just to make sure they're not liable for anything that happens during certain events. And since we got handed this out, I remember I was kind of weirded out by it, but at the same time, I was a high school student. I didn't really care about consent forms. Sign it. I don't want to do work was usually the mindset I would go with. I remember I went home that weekend. The whole school started talking about it. People started making group chats about the Squid Games, about how they're going to team up and stuff. And me, well, when I got to school on Monday, this is where things get really freaky. But before we continue with the story, by the way, I tell these stories always live on Twitch, and I'm always streaming live, literally telling crazy stories like this one. And on top of that, just kind of enjoying playing games with you guys. So if you guys do want to watch me live do these crazy things, go to twitch.tv/Bubba_streams and watch me live doing these insane things. But other than that, let's get back to the story. But anyways, I remember I ended up going back to school on Monday, and when I got to school, I remember seeing a bunch of students wearing Nike tech suits and basically wearing track uniforms, but they weren't all the same color. Like, everyone just wore them to resemble that they were actually playing Squid Games. Let's just say they wanted to get into the school spirit, as you can call it. But anyways, I remember we all went to our classrooms, we sat down, and that's when the announcement started. "Students, would you all please head to the gymnasium? Thank you." We all ended up going down to the gym, and that's when there was a line painted on the floor, and all of us students had to stand on one side of the gym. We didn't know what was going on, but a lot of people started freaking out saying, "Oh my goodness, guys, we're playing red light, green light." And it's like, okay, great. That's great. You watched the show. Thanks for the spoiler, even though I really didn't care, to be honest. But anyways, and I remember we ended up hearing on the announcements, "All right, students, this is is a quick practice round for red light, green light. And right when the announcement said green light, students started sprinting across the gym. Like, no joke, I've never seen like how fast students were until this day. But no joke, like even the fat guy in our school was running pretty quick. Like, it was like he was actually after a cheeseburger, which sounds really mean, and no offense to fat people, but you're fat, so it's okay. But anyways, I remember after the practice round, a bunch of students started feeling confident about themselves that they weren't going to get out. And the teacher on the announcements was just saying randomly red light, green light, as you guys know how the game goes. And when we actually ended up all going back to play the elimination round that everyone was so worried about, I remember a bunch of teachers ended up walking in to the gymnasium, lining up on the sideline, holding paintball guns. Not actual guns, by the way, YouTube. I'm not trying to get demonetized here, but legit paintball guns. At that moment, everyone started to kind of freak out, confused on what was going on. And, you know, we thought it was just like a prop. You know, they're not actually going to use them, right? Well, that's where we're wrong. Because I remember when the announcement said green light, everyone started running. And right as he said red light, there were still a bunch of students moving. And what did these teachers do? They literally started aiming and ba 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 ba. No joke. I never thought this would happen. But students started getting shot with paintball guns. And no joke, some of them actually ended up getting really badly bruised. At this moment, a lot of students in my school started to freak out. And no joke, like it got to the point where actually students were crying. No joke, they showed no mercy. Like, it was actually crazy. I thought my school was going crazy. And to be fair, as a person that didn't watch the show at the time, like, you gotta admit, it was pretty insane. But a lot of students didn't like try to get fazed by it, and they continued playing red light, green light. And when we finally got to the point where so many students ended up passing through, I remember the announcement said, whoever didn't pass red light, green light, please eliminate them. And that's when the teachers ended up standing in front of the line that we all crossed and sprayed down the rest of the students with paintball guns. This school was legit getting paintball by teachers, by the way, which is insane. I remember after the game, a lot of students actually ended up going home. Actually, they were supposed to go home because they got their wristbands that they got originally when they walked in cut off, and basically they all ended up going home. I remember it got to the point where actually some parents ended up showing up to the school expressing their concern, but since they signed the consent form, there was really nothing they can do. And at that moment, that's when we realized there were still 5 more games to go. And these 5 games, well, a lot of students were worried about. We all wanted to pass our finals, but at the same time, were we willing to get shot by a paintball? That's where I'm not sure. Because a lot of students started, like, you know, getting with their alliances that they made over group chats over that weekend. And let's just say some of them actually ended up backstabbing each other. And me, well, just like 4, 5, 6 in the show, I was alone. And this is where things got really bad. But if you guys do want to hear more of the story, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe. Trust me, the story gets a lot more intense. And also, there will be a part 2 to this. So if you guys do want that, hopefully we can hit maybe, let's say 500 likes, and we'll continue on with the story. But anyways, guys, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you dudes in next story time. Peace out, guys.